Well, this is the widest smile that I can give you because I love it when technology grabs all the headlines, and it happens to be the biggest catchphrase or buzzword of 2023, which is ChatGPT, or a concept called generative AI. What is generative AI? Well, we've shown you all about ChatGPT, and more importantly, how ChatGPT is now powering Microsoft Bing and helping it really close the gap with Google in the search engine wars. Even then, and even though Microsoft Bing has now crossed 100 million users after we aired that exclusive access episode using Bing and seeing how it might change the search user experience altogether, Google still enjoys more than 85 to 90% of the search engine market. But is Google getting complacent and letting Microsoft take over? Well, Google is not going to take this laying down. They now have launched, at least in the US and UK, to select users, a product called Bard. They call it an experiment which runs on their language model, LaMDA, but in a nutshell, it's Microsoft and OpenAI's ChatGPT versus Google's Bard. Microsoft obviously is going to use that sort of generative artificial intelligence and embed it across its suite of Office products. We've seen what they've planned already, and more importantly, change the search experience on Bing. They've already managed to do that to a large extent. But then the OG Google search will soon have Bard integrated into it as well. But what is Google's Bard? Well, we have exclusive access to Bard now on Tech Today, and we just want to put things into perspective, tell you how Bard is any different from ChatGPT and whether this is going to be the true disruptor that we are waiting for in 2023. Because honestly speaking, 2022 is when ChatGPT had become quite the rage, and now everyone seems to know about it. But is Bard anything like a Celtic poet, which is literally what Bard stands for? Maybe they could have come up with a better name, but we want to put the two of them together. So this is a Tech Today special, which begins with Bard versus ChatGPT. Right now, when you're talking about the user interface, and if this is how you're going to interact with AI, well then Bard honestly has the cutting edge over ChatGPT. ChatGPT gives a lot of data really, but it does make it a little clunky when you open a new chat right over there. I personally think, and this is a subjective thing, that Google's Bard is a far more polished sort of user interface, but you can let us know on our social media handles. But in terms of basic user interface and entering prompts, I think Bard 1, ChatGPT 0. Now the real chink in the armor, or the biggest grouse we've had with ChatGPT, is its biggest restriction, which happens to be that the entire AI model is trained on data sets only up till September 2021. So often, even if you're doing this for fun, you will get dated responses, and that can be quite inaccurate. When you're talking about Google, you're talking about perhaps the biggest search repository, the maximum amount of search data and experience in the world. Google happens to be a way of life. Google will then in real time search across the internet, and the data sets are much bigger even in this particular experiment. So a very popular movie which happens to have released maybe after ChatGPT became quite the phenomenon was Pathaan. So let's ask Google Bard for a review of the movie Pathaan. And in a matter of maybe 3 or 4 seconds, they've given you a whole bit on whether or not Pathaan is worth watching, is a matter of personal opinion. It's given me pros and cons to consider before actually watching the movie. It's also given me a nice little disclaimer saying ultimately whether or not you want to watch this movie is actually up to you. If you're a fan of Shah Rukh Khan or action movies, you might just enjoy it. However, if you're looking for a movie with a more complex plot or more nuanced characters, you might be disappointed. I think this is game, set, match. In a nutshell, they've pretty much sorted you out. A very interesting thing out here with Bard, it has an option saying view other drafts. So it had 3 drafts. So draft number 2 is structured in a very different way, and it asked me questions like, these are factors you should consider. Do you enjoy watching action movies? Do you like Shah Rukh Khan? Are you willing to sit through a long movie? Spoiler alert, I'm not going to give you any more, though I'm guessing a lot of y'all have watched it now on OTT. And then there's a 3rd draft as well, which I find fascinating. Let's ask the exact same question to good old ChatGPT. Now, this is a mixed bag of responses, and this gives you the difference between the two in 1 second. Firstly, I'm impressed that ChatGPT was fast, but like they say, slow and steady wins the race. Being fast doesn't necessarily mean that you are correct. It's the same when we're talking about news. You have to be spot on, and this is misinformation, but I've told you about the problem much before over here. It's saying Pathaan is an upcoming Indian movie, and as an AI language model, I do not have access to advanced screenings or reviews for this film. That's because Mr. ChatGPT is living in September 2021. So in terms of data sets and just general knowledge, yet again, one more point to Google Bard. Now, the word on the street is that Google Bard is much faster than ChatGPT. We are on the same machine using both of these AI services on the exact same internet connection, which is a high-speed connection. Let's give it a slightly more complicated prompt and make both of them do something a little more fun, but something that would take a lot more time for a normal human being to do. Compose a rap song with Ronaldo and Brad Pitt as the protagonists. This is the most random stuff that I'm asking it to do. Let's see how long Bard takes to do this. In less than 8 seconds, I have 3 drafts of a rap song with Ronaldo and Brad Pitt saying, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo, the best player in the world. I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm loved by all. I'm a global icon, I'm here to stay. So step aside, haters, and make way for the king. Kind of sounds like Cristiano Ronaldo as well. And the second verse is with Brad Pitt. The chorus is both of them. Each verse is new. If I look at the other drafts as well, I know it sounds silly, but just to see what this means in terms of songwriters, script writers, people writing this very show. Are you watching? You have another one, which is very different in terms of the drafts. And honestly, the lyrics, the composition, the fact that it happened in a matter of seconds. Let's just see how ChatGPT does it. Something very interesting about GPT-4, it's managed to give me a far more innovative verse and saying, listen up y'all, I got a story to tell about a soccer player who's known all around the world. I'm talking about me, Cristiano Ronaldo. Very interesting. A little poetic, strangely. Bard, the poet, didn't manage to do it as well. And this is doing it in real time. So I like the fact that while the interface looks cleaner on Bard, ChatGPT is doing it in real time and the cursor's moving and it's just going on and on and on. While I continue reading, it keeps springing up more surprises. So over here, in terms of response time, I just have to say this, GPT wins. This is fascinating, the kind of outputs we are getting from ChatGPT, which seem to be the OG, and all of a sudden Bard has showed up. And when it officially launches in India, I think ChatGPT will need to up its game because fundamentally they're both very different. Look, on news channels, bloggers, YouTube, you're going to see a lot more about Bard many months from now, but we're telling you first on Tech Today here on this very show. They're both trained on different language models altogether. When you're talking about ChatGPT, it can understand and generate a wide range of text for multiple purposes. LaMDA, which is what Bard is based upon, is a language model which was designed specifically to have more natural and more sincere conversations which seem like you're having it with a human being. For instance, let's just show you why am I talking about it, saying, how are you? I'm bored, I'm lonely, and I'm asking Google Bard a question which answers instantly saying, I'm doing well, thank you for asking. I'm excited to be able to help people with their tasks and to learn more about the world. How are you doing today? Thanks for asking, Mr. Bard. When you ask ChatGPT the same question, by the way, for the previous rap song, it already gave it a title saying Ronaldo meets Brad. Well, I didn't have to really come up with that. That is a value addition by ChatGPT. Let's ask ChatGPT, how are you? Well, honestly, ChatGPT is not the most conversational one. That happens to be Bard, very simply because of what I just explained to you. LaMDA is a conversational model. Maybe on Bing would have given me a different answer. It says, as an AI language model, I don't have feelings, but I'm functioning well and ready to assist you with any questions or tasks that you may have. How can I help you today? So they're both coming to the same question about how are you doing today, how can I help you today. They're keeping the conversation going, but honestly ChatGPT is more honest, saying, look, I am an AI, let's be very clear about that. We're not going to be best friends today. Whereas Bard is keeping the conversation going. Even if I view the other drafts, which is a feature I love about Google Bard, it says interesting things like, I'm doing well, thank you, I'm excited to be able to help you. I'm also learning a lot about the world and how to interact with people. How are you doing today? Well, I'm fantastic because I am hosting Tech Today, your favorite technology show, and we are comparing Google Bard with ChatGPT. And for this one, well, I'll give this point to Google Bard because if you're sitting out there, it's raining outside, the monsoons are going to be coming here outside the Tech Today studio in Mumbai, and you need someone to speak to, Google Bard wins over ChatGPT in that department. So in a nutshell, what do you need to know about this AI tool by Google called Bard? Well, if you're comparing it to ChatGPT, it has a far more recent and updated knowledge base, right? It's using Google's search repository. For the same, it draws data from the internet, not like ChatGPT, which was just trained up to 2021. I really think that ChatGPT is based more on text functions. It needs a little bit more prodding and more text inputs to get your point from that particular AI tool. And lastly, after using both products extensively for the past few days, I can safely say that Bard is a double-edged sword. Now, while it is amazing that it looks good, it has access to so much more data from Google, but the real concern there is if there's any misinformation, the fact that Bard is so much more conversational and might make its way to Google devices, maybe your next Pixel device, maybe your Google Home speaker, and so many more things in and around you that are powered by Android and open source software. I think the guardrails will need to be made a lot more solid and lifted really high when we're talking about Google Bard now taking on ChatGPT. Well, there you have it, an India exclusive first look at Google Bard. And yes, we're going to be experimenting with it over the next few weeks, but we've already compared its early renditions to the OG ChatGPT. It's still early days for both of these tools, but I can only tell you one thing, it's fascinating the kinds of things these tools will be able to do. And given, of course, that it's Microsoft and OpenAI with ChatGPT and Bing for search across Microsoft Office and all their other products, and Google with Android, and what Bard and Lambda will do over the next few years when you're talking about software or hardware, the potential is endless. Be rest assured, we'll be covering it on Tech Today, but let us know what you thought about our Google Bard first look versus ChatGPT.